to celebrate the election, which is something I guess is worth celebrating. I mean, it's not like it's a holiday. We don't get the day off. And if anything, it's more like an errand that we spend a couple minutes on and then we forget about the rest of the day. But to celebrate the election, I was requested to discuss The American President, the 1995 feature that tried to bring some elegance and class to the most powerful office in the land. You know, something that the presidency maybe had in 1995. I don't know, maybe people back in the day watched this and thought it was great, but nowadays, people probably look at it and think, wow, this is a very romanticized look at the presidency. Well, let's try our best to clear our heads and look at the Rob Reiner flick starring Michael Douglas and Annette Bening. Like I said, this was released in 1995 with Rob Reiner directing and somewhat newcomer writer Aaron Sorkin, who made a huge theatrical writing debut in 1992 with A Few Good Men. So once again, this duo tackled the world of US politics by making one of the most rosy-colored and unapologetically cute versions of the American presidency that I have ever seen. Look, American politics do seem divisive nowadays, but I always explain that things have always been somewhat divided. However, there was a sort of period of civility and high economy in 1995 with Bill Clinton in office, so it makes sense that a romantic comedy starring Michael Douglas as President Andrew Shepard would be widely accepted, even if the narrative definitely swings one partisan direction. I suppose the Clinton scandal wouldn't become breaking news until 1998, and since then it seems like there's only increased scrutiny directed at the US leaders, for better or worse. I was surprised Reiner would want to go in this direction after the hard-cutting story of A Few Good Men, but I guess after he went north, he needed anything to relax his brain. The American President also stars Annette Bening as Sidney Wade, an environmental lobbyist who the president finds a liking to, as he was widowed during his first-term election. He stayed away from dating, but decides to pursue Sidney despite the negative press and the challenges of passing two bills of legislation, one for crime and an environmental protection bill, which is where he finds his opening with Sidney. From there, we have a lot of discussions about policy and deliberations, which is very enjoyable as a political science major. We get additional performances from Martin Sheen and Michael J. Fox, still one of my favorite actors whose career was sadly cut way too short. Then there's a lot of dancing and dating and a third act conflict that leads to a resolution that's so incredibly silly, you'd imagine this takes place in a country where they literally threw out all the conservatives, or at least brainwashed them. Not to get too loose with the generalizations, but during a press conference, the president announces that he'll be introducing a crime bill that will increase gun control and explicitly points out assault rifles, and it ends with all the members of Congress clapping for him. I know this is the State of the Union address, but come on, political divisiveness exists, and this kind of rhetoric, regardless of what yours or my beliefs are, would not lead to a rousing standing ovation. It feels like a studio-mandated ending, or at least a dreamed-up version of America that Aaron Sorkin strives for. His work has done this before, like if you watch The Newsroom or The West Wing, the latter of which is directly inspired by this film, but just like those TV shows, the American president shines when they have the bickering about the mechanics of the job, making deals, compromising, pushing for your vision, and the sacrifices the position takes on a person. The television shows are allowed to expand on these ideas, therefore they become a much more worthwhile production. But the movie still showcases all the talent that we've come to love and admire from Sorkin. Putting the politics aside, a successful romantic comedy is only possible if the chemistry between the two leads is efficient or not. Michael Douglas hardly fails as a love interest in anything he appears in, and his interactions with Annette Bening are believable, lovely, and gosh darn it, I like it. He's a very affectionate guy, which only makes the audience question just how much spare time a president has. But it feels like a legit love story, one that's about an older couple, so you're mostly rooting for them to work it out and hopefully succeed in their legislative goals. Simply put, there's not a whole lot of meat on the bones, but it doesn't seem like it's trying to be complex or one of a kind. Have you ever wanted to see the leader of the free world fall in love on the big screen? Your wish is granted, thanks to the guy who made The Princess Bride. It's funny to compare my experience with these two movies. I recently talked about The Princess Bride and how it didn't make much of an impression on me the first time I saw it because it didn't feel too unique. My opinion has changed over time, but then again, here I am, feeling that this Rob Reiner directed picture, The American President, doesn't feel unique. But this doesn't have the same lasting impression as his other films, and it lacks a cult fan base, so I don't see myself feeling compelled to return to it in the future. If you want to have an uplifting, patriotic feature about America, I'd check out Mr. Smith Goes to Washington or Young Mr. Lincoln. But then again, The American President isn't even about patriotism. It first and foremost is a love story, with some political jargon spread throughout, which is honestly done better in the few episodes of The West Wing I've managed to see in the past. This does serve as a good test pilot for The West Wing. It could have even existed in the same universe had they made a few changes and kept Martin Sheen's character the same name. Overall, it's exactly what you would expect from a 90s soft romantic comedy. It doesn't try to be too mean-spirited, it doesn't try to be too realistic, it's just an enjoyable watch for about 2 hours. But if you're going through the Netflix menus and you see anything from Reiner's earlier years or anything from Sorkin's later years, I would prefer you go watch those. But if you're just trying to be a completionist and see them all, it's worth the watch. Special thanks to Lucas for this Patreon request, and thanks to all my Patreon supporters. For only $7, you can get your own monthly movie review. Ask me to review anything I haven't already. There's also other perks like blogs, exclusive videos, and early access. You can also follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And thanks so much for watching this video.